Welcome to the Somerville Redevelopment Authority's meeting of September 12th. My name is Phil Ercolini. I'm the chair of the Somerville Redevelopment Authority, and I call this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this public meeting of the SRA is being conducted via remote participation. This session will be recorded and will be a public record. I will now ask the board members to confirm they are in attendance in alphabetical order. Awana Bani.
Here.
Ben Ewan Campen.
Here.
William Gage is not with us at the moment. Patrick McCormick.
Here.
Christine Stone.
Here.
And myself, Phil Ercolini, are in attendance. We have a quorum. I'll now ask city staff to present a few of the house rules about using the technology.
Yep. Thank you, Phil. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Demers, and I'm an economic development planner with the city, and I serve as staff to the Somerville Redevelopment Authority. When an agenda item is being presented, any presentation materials that staff have received ahead of time will be displayed on the screen. City staff and other participants who wish to direct the board's attention to a specific page should verbally note what page staff should show on the screen and should then verbally explain to the board what is being shown. Please also note that this is the first Somerville Redevelopment Authority meeting that is being conducted over Zoom webinar rather than GoToWebinar. In order to comply with open meeting law under state guidance, which does not allow for side conversation, the chat function amongst attendees has been disabled. If an attendee has a question or would like to make a comment on the matters discussed tonight, please use the raise hand function if you would like to speak. I will unmute you one by one and give you 2 minutes to speak. When it is your turn to speak, please clearly state your name and address before saying anything else. After 2 minutes, your microphone will be muted. And I'll pass things over to Catherine.
Hi, my name is Catherine Lester-Selkert, and I am special counsel to the SRA. I want to remind all board members that all votes must be roll call votes with a motion and a second. The chair will call on each board member for a yes or no vote in alphabetical order. All statements that you make will be on the record. We have disabled the chat function in accordance with the public records law. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And due to Councilor Ben Ewan Campen's Finance Committee meetings and Catherine as well, either one of you, would you consider moving any of the items on the agenda forward? I can take them out of sequence if you like. If not, we can just plow right through it and see where we go with it. Okay, Ben?
I'm fine with that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Catherine?
Yeah, whatever the chair would like to do. I could speak to the Cobble Hill matter if you like at the beginning, just to say that I was premature in asking the SRA for a vote on that or putting that on the agenda. The only thing we really need to inform the SRA, if they don't already know, is that the time for filing an appeal is September 20th. We have not spoken to the mayor about this yet, about whether or not to file an appeal. If we do need a vote from the SRA, we would ask to convene a special meeting in order to give you a full discussion of the pros and cons. So I apologize for having that on the agenda this evening when we really don't have much to say about it at this point in time.
All right, Catherine, well, let's do that. Let's take 90 Washington Street. And the first item is a request for retroactive permission for Eversource Power work. That should be brief.
Yeah, so Eric Weissman from the Department of Public Works will be presenting on this, but his expectation was to present at 6, so I'll message him and see if he can join sooner, but he's not here at the moment.
Okay, no, you know what? We'll reconsider that then. We'll go back to the regular agenda. And item number 1 is approval of the June 21st meeting minutes. Have all members had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Any recommendations, any amendments, any changes, any errata? Seeing none?
The last the last sentence ending adjournment, I think it says that Ben Ewan Campen seconded and he was absent, so it's either one or the other.
Okay. All right. Duly noted.
Otherwise, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
As amended, and a second?
Second.
Christine Stone seconds. Roll call vote. Awana Bani,
Yes.
Ben Ewan Campen,
Yes.
William Gage is not in attendance. Patrick McCormick,
Yes.
Christine Stone,
Yes.
and myself, Phil Ercolini, have approved the June 21st meeting minutes. Second item on the agenda is a public comment period. Ben, is there any members of the public at this time who'd like to address the board, address the membership?
I don't see any hands up yet, but we do have two attendees here tonight. So if we want to just give a couple seconds.
Sure.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Union Square Revitalization Plan Development Update. And we have a presentation from US 2 on the development of Union Square.
Yep. So I see that we have Greg Karcheski with us. Greg, I'm going to promote you to a panelist.
Good evening, Chair Galini, members of the Planning Board. My name is Greg Karcheski. I'm here with US 2. We're the designated master developer for the Union Square revitalization. Ben, if I may, I'd love to share my screen. Looks like it just needs to be enabled.
Yep. Give me 1 second. All right. If you want to try now, Greg.
Correct. Can everybody see the screen okay? Should just
Yes.
be an image of Union Square. Terrific. So appreciate your time this evening. The goal of the conversation tonight is to provide an update of how we're progressing against the master plan broadly, and then a more specific update around the initial phase 10 to 50 prospect, formerly known as D2. And then certainly there'll be time for questions. Also wanted to run through a little bit of some of the community benefits work that we've been doing over the last period of time. So first, from a master project update standpoint, to ground everybody in the foundation of the project, obviously all the work that we're doing goes back to the community's goals established in Summer Vision around broadly around job creation, adding open space to Somerville, providing a mix of housing, including affordable housing, and then improving mobility and the many different ways to get in and around the city. And then more specifically, as it related to Union Square, it was focused on really transforming Union Square into this dynamic mixed-use economic engine, really to restore it to its commercial past as a downtown in Somerville. And critical to that, as everybody knows, is the Green Line and the connectivity that it would provide to the broader economy here in Boston. Our process, the process started before us back in 2012 with the approval of the revitalization plan. We were designated back in 2014. As you can see on the screen, from 2014 to 2017, the city and community were leading a process that started with Summer Vision and becoming increasingly more definitive about zoning and the neighborhood plan, and ultimately a covenant related to the D blocks. Since then, from 2017 through current, we went through the design and site plan review on the first phase, negotiated a community benefits agreement, the first in the history of Somerville, completed the MIPA process, and then in the middle of the pandemic started construction on the phase 1 project that we're nearly complete with. So from an overview perspective, this is a massing diagram that's part of our approved CDSP. It's 15 acres in total, nearly 2.4 million square feet, with a priority towards commercial space, given the goals around, evolving Union Square into a job center. Overall, the project includes 17 buildings, 11 different open spaces that'll create more than 3.6 acres of civic space and public realm. All the buildings that you see in some shade of blue are commercial projects, and all the buildings that you see in some shade of orange are residential projects. Oh, there we go. Now just shifting views, the same image, but in a a site plan view. Again, commercial projects are in blue, residential projects are in orange. Just going to kind of walk through, where we've been focused, where we'll be focusing next, and kind of what's happening with the master plan. Overall, the master plan is 2.4 million square feet. The D2 block outlined here by number 1 is obviously the first phase. It's 607,000 square feet. We'll cover that in more detail as my comments continue, but that represents 25% of the overall master plan area. And then we've also, been advancing 2 other projects. One is the D3.1 block, which is immediately on the other side of the tracks from the D2 blocks. That's a 280,000 square foot life sciences project. And then the third project is really our efforts to try and start the D4.3 affordable housing project. In total, these 3 projects would make up 40% of the master plan area. The MLDA requires that we get 50% done by 2037. So, just to kind of put in context about expectations around timing, we continue to work, out of our offices here at 31 Union Square, every day to advance the overall master plan. But that gives you a sense of kind of how we're progressing against the broader objectives outlined in the MLDA. In addition, there are a number of other sites where we've been in some level of pursuit activity, whether that's, additional planning related to those sites, business plan development, or interactions with the owners around acquisition. So you can see those blocks outlined by this P for pursuit. And then also just wanted to highlight that there are some restrictions on various sites within the master plan that preclude their immediate development. And so whether there's our development covenant with the city that precludes any additional residential development until the second commercial building is developed, or the public safety building relocation, which occupies a large portion of the D1 block, or the covenant that sits on the Royal Hospitality site. All of those, all the sites with an R on them have some sort of constraint at this moment in time. We continue to pursue them and monitor them, but working towards removing those constraints so we can implement the entirety of the plan. So that's a bit of an overview on the master plan. We'll now transition to the D2 project, or the 10 to 50 prospect. We're putting the D2 label away after many years. And you can see this is actually a real image, a photo of the project as it existed about 30 days ago. Sorry, there's a little lag here in my slide advances. Oh. Bear with me for a second, please. So, this is the D2 location on the site plan. D2, as you may remember, has a really significant industrial past. It was had environmental contamination. It was a scrapyard. A majority of the site was a scrapyard, and the Millers River actually ran through the site at one point in its history. So the city's vision really was, because of its location next to the T, to make it the first phase of the revitalization and really reclaim the property and transform it into a productive use. As the plan for D2 evolved, we were excited that the plans for D2 really were emblematic of all the different goals of Summer Vision. First, the creation of new mobility infrastructure, and we'll talk a little bit about the work that we've done with the T to enable the station opening. New housing, including 90 affordable housing units, space for 500 new employees and jobs, over 33,000 square feet of open space, and then a number of economic and fiscal benefits in the form of taxes, as well as acquisition of the property. And then in addition to that, D2 plays a really important role in connecting the longtime kind of living room of the community, which is Union Square Plaza, with the new node in the neighborhood, the MBTA station. And so really finishing that streetscape along Prospect was viewed as an important goal for the project. Now I'm going to show you over the last 30 months in 30 seconds, kind of the work that's been done on site here. Let me get this started. And if only it was that easy, right? So that's a current view of the building. And now the city staff had asked me to kind of walk through the various components of the D2 project. And so the composition of the project really is there's really two building permit buildings, the 10 Prospect Street building, which is the lab building, or D2.1, and then the 20 to 50 Prospect building, which is the D22 to 3 building, which is the residential building. And then there's two other lots that have been created that are part of the permit, a civic space lot, which is the public open space, and then a thoroughfare lot. And so I'm going to kind of walk through each of these components of the project to give you an update as to how we're progressing. And so the photo of the lab building that you see is a recent photo. So the building itself, as you can see, is largely completed. It's 180,000 gross square feet of floor area. Primarily life sciences. It includes some retail and ACE space. We were able to work through the process with the city staff to gain a certificate of occupancy on July 28th, 2023 for the base building itself. Leasing activity is ongoing, and then we're working towards final completion of this building and closing out the conditions that are part of all of our permits in October of 2023. And that would include, hopefully, a certificate of completion from the Somerville Redevelopment Authority, which is, I know, on the agenda after our conversation here. The building will be LEED Gold certified, and then also Wired Score Platinum. Wired Score is a measure of connectivity, and so it's the highest level of connectivity, which we're excited about and is obviously important to the life sciences tenants. The design inspiration for the building itself was originally Union Square. At one point in its history, Union Square was called Sandpit Square because of the silica that existed there. And it was a center of commerce where there was brick making and glass making, copper tube manufacturing. And so we really tried to draw those elements, those materials into the building's facade to be a kind of a modern representation of the materials that were the foundation for the commerce that occurred here. I'm going to walk through a number of images. Some of them are photos, some of them are renderings. This is the first image. It's at the corner, the southwest corner of the 10 Prospect Street site looking north. If anyone remembers the sidewalk along Prospect Street, it was about 3.5 feet wide, and you had to dodge street poles and signs to walk around it. Excited that we now have a gracious sidewalk with landscaping surrounded. This is the edge of the lab building here. And then moving around the building to the Somerville Avenue side. So this is immediately across the street from Ricky's Flowers. We worked very carefully with the city team because the city team was working on the SAUCE project, Somerville Avenue Utility and Streetscape project. So we were able to really kind of merge the design that we had put together and the city's design to really widen the sidewalk here, accommodate a bike lane, and add some landscaping and street furniture. This is Bennett Court, which is the roadway or thoroughfare that runs in between the lab building, which you see here, and then immediately behind the viewer in this image would be the residential building. You can see this is a night shot. I apologize, it's a little grainy, but you get a sense of how it's being completed. This is the side entry to the lab building. We have an art mural that's been installed by a local artist. This is a mural recently installed by Sophie Tuttle. She's a local artist that we worked with. We worked with the Somerville Arts Council to do a request for qualifications from a number of artists. And after a dozen artists responded, we chose Sophie because of she's very talented. And this is a river otter, kind of reminiscent back to the fact that the Millers River flowed through the site at one point in time on the property. Here's an image of the lobby. I will say the base building is completed. A lot of the details of the building are still, being finalized. So by way of example, this 10 Prospect that you see on the window is a temporary decal. There'll be full building signage that'll be installed. There's also some elements on the interior of the lobby that we're still getting in place. Here's a rendering of what the interior of the lobby will look like. We're getting very close on that. And here's the 7th floor of the building. We're putting in an amenity space for the tenants in the building that has an indoor component as well as an outdoor component. We'll offer great views kind of west and north towards the Prospect Hill Monument. The views from up there have been great and have been well received by the tenant prospects that we've toured through the building. And then in addition to that amenity space, in recognition of our goal to really create an ecosystem in Union Square that caters to, startups, to medium-sized and ultimately mature companies, we've opted with this first building to convert 2 of the floors in the building to suites. So rather than waiting for a tenant and working with that tenant to build out the space according to their specifications, we're building 2 of the floors out to spec suites, so that tenants can, smaller tenants can occupy immediately without a lot of friction. And so this is an image of what that lab space will look like. We expect these to be delivered probably second quarter of next year. And then this is the, yes, Phil.
Greg, can you excuse me for 1 second? Ben Ewan-Campen has to go to a finance committee meeting. He has a couple of questions he'd like to pose prior to him leaving. If you don't mind me interrupting you for those.
Absolutely, would welcome the questions. Thank you, Chair.
All right, Ben, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, thank you everybody for your indulgence. My apologies. Thank you, Greg. I look forward to reviewing the rest of your presentation. I have 2 questions, and maybe you're going to get to this. Can you give a brief timeline update on D3, the 50 Beacon site?
Sure. Yeah. Through the chair to member Ewan-Campen. So the 50 Beacon site, we've completed design and site plan review. We've submitted for building permit, so it's in for city review for building permit. You may remember that's a 280,000 square foot life sciences building with I think it's around 16,000 square feet of new public space. And that building is also adjacent to the MBTA tracks and right away. So there's a process that we need to go through with the MBTA called an access license. That's usually a pretty lengthy process to be able to build in that corridor adjacent to the right of way. And so we're simultaneously going through that in the building permit process right now.
Okay, and through you, Mr. Chair, so it sounds like you're not really in a position to give like a, anticipated start date.
Through the chair, not quite yet, but we're getting to the very end of the permitting process. So that'll be the next building that we intend to start.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Chair, my next question, it's kind of a big picture question. So, I certainly don't mean to put you in the hot seat, but you started the presentation with the overall kind of outlook on all the D blocks. From where I sit there, and as you mentioned, several kind of future D blocks have various challenges associated with them, whether it's the city having a longer timeline on the police station, whether it's the staging of the special permit, et cetera. I guess my question is how you're thinking about big picture, these future steps, because some of them involve, as originally contemplated, taking Ricky's Market by eminent domain, things that, I'm not here speaking on behalf of the city council in any way, but those decisions I think were made in a previous political context. And I just basically, as a member of the public, have a hard time imagining, that aspect of the plan being endorsed. Ultimately it would come to the city for the funding, and it seems like a challenge to me. And I just wonder, kind of big picture, if you could share how you're thinking about those future stages. The fact that you're all now working on projects outside the D blocks make it seem to me like this project that I think clearly was needed to get D2 moving and D3, you could argue. But a lot of the other blocks are actually kind of now held up, right? And we're, as right, there are other landowners trying to move forward on them. And one could argue that this current plan is actually holding back. That's feedback that I get from constituents a lot. So I'm just wondering if you could kind of share with us how you're thinking about those future phases.
Through the chair, happy to talk through it, and would love to talk about it, in maybe greater detail when you have some additional time, Councilor Ewan Campen, because there's a lot of detail here. But I think when you look at the MLDA, the contractual obligation that we have to the SRA is to go to each property owner, work with that property owner to acquire the site, and then to develop the property in accordance with the approved plan, the CDSP. And so that's our marching orders. That's the direction that we've been proceeding under. If we are unable to get to an agreement with any given property owner, then we would come back to this board and seek the power of eminent domain to acquire the site. So I think it is not, it's not a it's not a given that we would, our intention would not to be used would be to not use the power of eminent domain. By way of example, the 50 Webster site, we were able to privately negotiate that. We've made offers to other property owners, including the DC6 block, with the, in an effort to try and move that forward. So, that's the intention, I think, is to continue to follow through on, our agreements together. Hopefully that answered your question. I mean, I think we're, the project has always been envisioned as happening in phases, right? And so we have been focused on the first phases that we identified in the planning documents. Some of the properties were, have been slated for future phases for a variety of reasons. Some of them are the development covenant and other things relative to housing and some of the things that you identified. That's where we sit right now. And hopefully that's helpful. Happy to answer any follow-up question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. That is helpful. I mean, I think it's clearly a larger conversation, and by no means is this meant to be an attack on you. There's a lot of stuff happening that is I think one could argue has changed since the original urban renewal plan was passed, whatever it was, 10 years ago. So clearly this will be an ongoing conversation, and I appreciate you taking a break from your presentation to address these questions.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, Greg, you can continue unless there's anyone else who needs to leave and ask a question of Greg at this point. I don't think so, okay, Greg, you may continue if you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was mentioning that we were investing additional capital into the building to build out some suites to facilitate early stage life sciences companies. So we're building out two floors, and those will be delivered early next year or the second quarter of next year. The next component of the project is 20 to 50 Prospect. We've branded that building Prospect Union Square. It's the tower and the mid-rise component. It includes 450 units of apartment, including 20% affordable housing, retail on the ground floor, some ACE, as well as shared parking structure. This project is being delivered in phases. So temporary certificate of occupancies have been achieved to date for towers floors 3 through 11. And then mid-rise floors 2 to 6. That's all the floors in the mid-rise. And then we anticipate the remaining tower floors from 12 to 25, to occur between now and January of 2024, roughly. Leasing activity is ongoing. There's 100+ units that are occupied. The affordable housing process is moving along. We've had a lottery. There's a number of the folks that have been we're fortunate to be at the top of the lottery list, if you will, for various units are now going through a process to select units and be certified. And then we anticipate final completion for Prospect Union Square to be January to February of 2024. The design inspiration, now that the building's up, we get a lot of questions about the design. It's certainly a unique design. The design was really, our architect's goal was to really think about how something that was, different in scale than the existing fabric of the building could relate to the existing fabric of the building. And so they took a color swatch of the neighborhood and extruded that into a palette of colors that you can see here on the bottom. And then, felt like that symbolized some of the diversity and vibrancy in the neighborhood, and then, applied that to the facade of the building, but also looked at ways to extrude the facade of the tower to break up its massing, and hopefully make it a little, more approachable. Now I'm going to go through a handful of images from the building. This is the tower lobby. It's largely in place. Still working on some final FF&E, some fixtures and art. This is the resident lounge. We also have amenities for pets. Here's a dog room. These are some unit photos. So these are actual units that have been established in the building. So, or that have been staged in the building, excuse me. So here's one. There's another example. And here's a third example. This will give you a sense of the apartments, and the response has been very positive so far. So now moving away from the two buildings to the civic space, which is, it's called Station Plaza. It's a plaza civic space type within the zoning. It's over 18,000 square feet, which is, greater than the Union Square Plaza area. And it's actually 3,500 square feet more than was approved in our master plan. So a 24% increase. So as we went through final design of this site, we were able to add quite a bit additional open space. The hardscaping of this area is nearing completion. Landscaping is in progress. Signage is forthcoming, and final completion is anticipated for October 2023. Here's an aerial view of the civic space, so you can see it in situ. This is a couple weeks old, so it doesn't really show some of the planting that's been accomplished since then. But you can see the residential mid-rise and the tower, the MBTA station here to the right. And then you can see how the path that we talked about leading back to the plaza has been put in place. Here's a recent image from the plaza looking north towards the 10 Prospect Street building. The plaza includes a lot of, excellent elements, the new landscaping. This is the accessible path to and from the MBTA station in the middle, permeable pavers, ample seating, new trees and landscaping. The plaza includes something unique in that it has silva cells underneath each of the trees, intended to promote full growth of those trees to create, an urban tree canopy that'll help with heat island effect. So we're excited to see how that continues to play out. This is an image of a rendering of the plaza. The area in the foreground, this amphitheater, is currently being constructed on site right now. So that's kind of the last remaining piece that they're working on. And then the last component here is really relates to thoroughfares and infrastructure. So there are 3 thoroughfares: Milk Alley, which is ostensibly a service alley running through the back of the site; Bennett Court, which is between the two buildings; and then Charlestown Place, which is between the residential building and the MBTA station. And in addition, there's some infrastructure that's been really critical to the project. One is, the MBTA improvements, and then the stormwater management system. The stormwater management system is complete, and the balance of these improvements are, nearing final completion. And I'll show you a series of images. So this is Bennett Court with the mid-rise building on the right and the lab building on the left. This is Milk Alley behind on the east side of 10 Prospect, the lab building. And then this is Charlestown Place. This is probably the one that has a little further to go between the residential building and the MBTA station. And then in terms of MBTA infrastructure, there were really 5 different items that we committed to deliver for the T. Some of those were delivered back in March of 2022 when the station opened, and others were anticipated to be delivered when we were closer to final completion. So the employee break room for the MBTA, which is currently in a temporary trailer, is being completed within the building. The bike racks and storage are complete. The ride drop off will be in the next 60 days. The accessible path to and from the station is complete. And the elevator, the MBTA elevator, was in place last year for the opening of the station. And, obviously the opening was a big event for everybody. Our temporary improvements were able to, interim improvements, were able to support that opening, despite the fact that our construction was continuing. So a lot of great coordination between the T's team, city's team, and our team to make that all happen. And then the last piece of infrastructure is an important one. This is at the southeast corner of the site. So this is Allen Street here. This is future Charlestown Place, the MBTA station to the right. D2.4 is the name of this lot. There's a 290,000 gallon subsurface stormwater tank that was installed in that location. That work has been completed to help mitigate, stormwater pressure from our site in the neighborhood. And then ultimately there will be a green space that's installed on top of that location. And then lastly, just a couple of, couple of slides about community benefits. Community benefits, since we started working on the project back in 2014, has been a really important topic. Something that we've worked hard at with the community. This is a photo from 2019 when we reached the agreement with the neighborhood council on the first community benefits agreement. We've since met with the members of the neighborhood council quarterly to review our progress against all the goals within that community benefits agreement. And some of the goals were about supporting small businesses. So, some of the monies that we've contributed are supporting Michael Robles, who's the small business liaison here in Union Square. We hosted a meeting for all the local businesses to learn about retail opportunities. We continue to support all the events that Union Square Main Streets puts on, whether that's Fluff or the holiday stroll or the farmers market. Workforce development and creating local jobs was, viewed as a really important part of our conversation with the neighborhood council. We partnered with Somerville Community Corporation and our contractors to do a couple of jobs fairs to bring out local folks. We also sponsored an employee within Somerville Community Corp to be able to expand their capacity around job outreach here locally. And through that and many other efforts, we've been able to get some pretty significant local workforce participation results from our two construction projects. So nearly 900,000 hours of worker hours have been performed. Almost 40% of those have been by people of color. 77,000 or 8.6% have been by Somerville residents, and 41,000 have been performed by women. So really strong start. These compare very, very favorable to the high school project the city recently completed, and certainly provide a good foundation for work going forward. Workforce development also takes the form of how can we use the project as a learning lab. So we're excited that we've been able to partner with the Somerville High School and Prospect Hill Academy, Tufts, Harvard, Cushing Academy, Sasaki Foundation, to expose students at all different levels to the project and to use it as a learning lab. So there's been some in-classroom discussion about the project, as well as a number of site visits. And we also had a student from the Career and Tech Ed program that was an intern last spring for 6 weeks with us for 16 hours a week, which was great. And then continued support of arts and creative, it being a important piece of the character of the neighborhood. We've over the last couple of years, we've had a coloring book that we've partnered with a local artist to create. We've done the mural on D2.1. We've sponsored Arts at the Armory, and then we have a couple other things in the works around public art that'll be revealed as we move forward here. And then last but not least, we partnered with the Somerville Homeless Coalition 2 years ago to start something we call USQ's Holiday Give. And we were able to get 9 different businesses from around the square to participate at the holiday time to raise money and goods for the Somerville Homeless Coalition's constituents. And our second annual, we were able to break all the records we had from the first year, delivered 1,800 pounds of food and over 8,500 direct contributions to the Homeless Coalition, which we're very proud of, excited to continue to move it forward and hopefully expand participation this year. And that's it. I appreciate your patience. There's a lot going on. I wanted to make sure we gave you a good, solid update, and I certainly am available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Greg. Any of the members have any questions of Greg at this time? I see none. That doesn't mean they won't come up, Greg. And I'm glad you make yourself available for those questions. So seeing
I actually have a question.
all right, Christine, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Greg, for a very comprehensive presentation. It really brought me up to date with everything that's been going on and everything I've been seeing over the last few months. My question relates to the civic space and the amphitheater that I saw in one of your renderings, which looks like it will be available for programming of some sort. And I wondered if any discussions or decisions have been made operationally about who would be responsible for programming. Is that something that US2 might do, or is that something that will go back to the city for the city to program? Or is it not available for, or is programming something that hasn't not yet been discussed? Thank you.
Through the chair to Member Stone, appreciate the question. The short answer is we haven't kind of focused on it quite yet. I think once the space gets open, we'll be ready to have more of those conversations. It is, the space is going to be open and available to the public. So, we would look for, opportunities to program that space, particularly when there's events happening in Union Square, as, another node of activity in the square. But, I think that'll evolve as the building and the area around it becomes operational.
Thank you.
Greg, I just had one observation. During the presentation, you had put up a screen of work that had been done over a 30-month period. And I was observing in the background, if you could believe it or not, Cambridge and the buildings that were built during the course of this project. And I said to myself, well, that was a catalyst for a lot of work that's ongoing in Cambridge on the border, particularly. So it all kind of fits together. So anyway, thank you for that. If there are no other questions from members, then the next item on the agenda is the master land disposition.
Sorry.
Yep.
Patrick, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thanks, Greg, for this really helpful presentation. Just a couple of questions. One more specific, and I might have missed the detail. If you could go back to kind of the overview of the different parcels, and another one more general. On the timing for that dedicated affordable housing site, it sounded like that's coming pretty soon.
Through the chair to Member McCormick. Yes, thank you for asking the question. Sorry, it's taken me a little bit to get back to that slide. Yeah. So that affordable housing project D4.3, which was a project that we along with the neighborhood council identified through the CBA process to be a largely affordable project rather than 20% affordable. When the city passed the 2019 zoning, which happened after the CBA was finalized, it effectively precluded our ability to do that project. And we spent a lot of time through the pandemic trying to find a way to make it happen. Through some brainstorming with the city and the mayor and the neighborhood council, we're getting much closer to an alternative path forward. Mm-hmm. And we've had some really constructive conversations with the neighborhood council over the last month and a half, and we're getting close to I think having a path forward for that project, which is very exciting. So I'm anticipating there'll be more activity happening here once we can kind of break through that piece, which has been the hang up with that particular site.
Right, through you, Mr. Chair. Okay, understood. I had missed that had that restriction, so that's helpful. So hopefully we can see some movement on that. My more general question, it might apply to some of the restrictions, but maybe also some of the market forces. I was just wondering, in general, what are you seeing any changes, good or bad, in terms of being able to, it seems like you outlined achieving the goals that we've collectively had. Are any of the current, market forces, or perhaps some of the harder to resolve development restrictions, could you tell us or share any of the biggest obstacles you feel like that are faced at the moment?
Through the chair to Member McCormick, appreciate the question. I think, the market is always evolving. We're in a, a very different market than it was when we started building D2, right? When we started the life sciences building, the life sciences market and the development market more broadly are much more challenging than they were at that time. You have, a lot of the life sciences companies are more capital constrained, so their growth is a little, is not as aggressive as it was for a period of time during the pandemic. That part of the reason why we're investing additional capital into the building to build out the spec suites is to be able to be even more competitive around some of the tenants that are out there seeking life sciences space. Beyond that, I think, a lot of the market forces that are in the news frequently, right, in terms of construction cost escalation and interest rate increases, are definitely weigh on the ability to execute real estate projects, both housing and lab right now. And so, we continue to work on, moving projects forward, but there definitely are headwinds that, I think are pretty well documented at this point. But, I think we knew from the beginning that this project was going to go through multiple cycles, right? And that, we were a committed partner to the city. We, for a while there, the MBTA Green Line wasn't a project for a couple of years, and we sort of stuck with it and stuck through it. So, we anticipate some ups and downs as we go through it. I think, a challenge certainly for everyone, in Somerville is just the cycle time that it takes to go through the entitlement process. I appreciated Councilor Ewan Campen's comment about, progress in the overall master plan. The reality is it takes, almost 2 years from, hey, I'm going to start designing this project to being able to put a shovel in the ground, and then another 3 years to build it. So that's 5 years of effort to be able to get to where we are in D2, after all the master plan and all that pre-work that was done. That was very important, obviously. But so for each of the buildings, it's more or less that timeline, right? And so, it takes a while, and the markets do fluctuate during that period, right? So hopefully that's helpful in responding to your question.
Yes, thanks very much. That's helpful.
Any further questions from members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Greg, for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next item on the agenda is Part B is Master Land Disposition Agreement and a Certificate of Compliance Process Introduction.
Yep, so this should be a fairly quick item. And Kathy, please step in if there's anything you want to add as I'm speaking about this. But as Greg just mentioned, and as many of you are already aware, the Redevelopment Authority and US2 have entered in 2017 into what is called a Master Land Disposition Agreement, or MLDA, which essentially outlines each party's responsibilities in relation to development in Union Square. This document is found online. I also sent it in our most recent communication with SRA members. Part of the process that is outlined in the MLDA is that US2 will apply for what are called certificates of compliance for various phases of development. And these basically confirm that the Redevelopment Authority members believe that US2 has developed the disposition parcel in question within that certificate in compliance with the Urban Renewal Plan and all subsequent planning board decisions. So I mostly just wanted to put this on SRA members' radars. So staff are currently working on a review process for these certificates of compliance. So mostly just wanted to bring it to your attention as we get closer to completion on 10 Prospect Street, or D2.1, as Greg was talking about. We'll have more information about this process in the coming months.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Ben on that? Okay, all right, seeing none, then the next item on the agenda is 90 Washington Street.
Yep, so I am going to also promote Eric Weissman from DPW. Kathy, before Eric joins, is there any context to this item?
No, I think Eric should speak first. And then I can answer any questions that people might have.
Sounds good. He may have just stepped away for a second, so let me just send him a message. Here we go.
Hi, sorry about that. I could hear you guys, but I could not speak.
Thank
So
you.
this is a license agreement with Eversource for the temporary poles placed to service the refrigerator used by the mobile farmers market. It's an agreement that Eversource provides anytime there is a temporary pole placed. It does not include an easement from Eversource, and it includes in the agreement that they will remove the pole when we are ready, for the next use for this space.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions of Eric on that? Seems pretty straightforward. Seeing none, we need a vote on that, Catherine?
Yes, the members need to vote to authorize you to sign the license agreement as chair
Okay, is
of
there
the
a
SRA.
motion?
And
Is there a
Christine
motion?
has
I'm
her
sorry,
hand up,
Christine?
Mr. Chair.
Yes. please.
Yes, I just wondered, is the license agreement have an expiration date or is it open-ended?
Through the chair, I believe it's open-ended, and then it is, terminated when we have the poles removed.
Okay, thank you.
I agree.
No, there's no further questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for retroactive permission. Patrick makes I'm sorry, you raised your hand, but are you making a motion to approve?
Yes, I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second on that?
Second,
Awana Bonnie seconds. We'll do roll call vote. Awana Bonnie,
yes.
Ben Ewan Campen has left the meeting. William Gage has joined the meeting. Bill, are you voting in favor of this?
He's muted.
You're muted. If you give me a thumbs up, that'll suffice, I think.
You got it.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Patrick McCormick,
Yes,
Christine Stone,
Yes,
and myself, Phil Ercolini, have voted to approve the retroactive permission for Eversource. The next item on the agenda, we've already had an update from Catherine on the Cobble Hill court case. So the next item on the agenda is item C, which is an update from the Civic Advisory Committee on 90 Washington Street.
Ed, you're still on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the committee. We are the 90 Washington Civic Advisory Committee will meet tomorrow night. And one of the agenda items is to start discussing possible placemaking events and activities on the so-called pop-up plaza on the northwest corner of the site. As you may remember, last October, there was discussion about how to use the site as temporary storage and operations in the middle of the parcel, and on the periphery to have this pop-up plaza on the corner of New Washington and Washington Streets, and then preserving the existing lawn outside of the perimeter fencing for passive recreation. And we are going to start discussing with the advisory committee tomorrow night about what sort of pop-up events and pop-up artwork and whatnot we should think about programming there in the coming months. We are looking to execute a contract for consultants to help us plan these type of activities. We want to start the outreach process now by conferring with the advisory committee. And next month, I can update you on our deliberations with the committee tomorrow night.
Thank you, Ted. Any questions of Ted on that? Okay, seeing none. Then the next item on the agenda is adopting a code of conduct.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair, this is me. Just give me 1 second to share
Sure.
screen. All right, can you see this?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so context for anyone watching. So the mayor's office has requested that all mayoral appointees on city boards, commissions, and committees, such as the Somerville Redevelopment Authority, adopt a code of conduct that outlines appropriate ways to act as a member of one of these groups. The goal of this initiative is to ensure that these groups remain safe and welcoming to diverse residents and their experiences, so that everyone feels like they can participate actively in city decision-making and planning processes. I'm going to review quickly what the code of conduct entails. So there are 12 goals that are outlined. So first, members will strive to appreciate differences in approach and point of view and treat residents, city employees, partner organizations, and other board, commission, or committee members with courtesy, respect, and professionalism. Members must administer board positions with integrity, honesty, truthfulness, and adherence to the absolute obligation to safeguard the public trust. Members are also expected to maintain professional working relationships with other members, city staff, and members of the public. The third is attendance and participation are an important part of appointments to a board, commission, or committee. While it is understood that members have other obligations, the expectation is that members will make every effort to attend and participate in meetings, and wherever possible, communicate any hardships to attendance. The fourth is that in some instances, members may find that various laws may apply to boards, commissions, and committees and to member participation, such as the open meeting law and the public records law. Members are expected to comply with these applicable laws and may seek guidance from city staff, the city clerk's office, or the city solicitor's office. Members are expected to have a basic understanding of these laws and how they apply to their membership. Fifth, the committee chair will be tasked with ensuring that all members have the opportunity to provide input and encourage the exchange of fair and balanced knowledge and perspectives. Sixth, members cannot unilaterally act on behalf of a board, commission, or committee without authorization from that board, commission, or committee. Seventh, members should commit to studying and analyzing the problems and issues that come before them, listen to requests, questions, and ask for clarification if necessary, and provide complete, knowledgeable, accurate, and precise information regarding inquiries. Eighth, the committee chair will be tasked with ensuring that members are adhering to the code of conduct. Ninth, the conduct of public officials and employees, paid or unpaid, is governed by state conflict of interest law, the purpose of which is to prevent conflicts between private interests and public duties. Violations of the law may carry civil or criminal penalties. Members should comply with the law and disclose any personal or business interest which may result in actual or perceived conflicts of interest. Many aspects of the law are complicated, and members can seek guidance from the State Ethics Commission or the City Solicitor's Office. 10th, disorderly conduct, including rude or intimidating behavior, utilizing obscene, abusive, threatening, or intimidating language or actions will not be tolerated. In addition to any other remedies or enforcement options available under the law, each board, committee, or commission may vote to censure the member, and the appointing authority may decline to reappoint an individual who violates any provision of this code of conduct. The staff liaison of each board, committee, or commission may recommend action through the appointing authority against the appointed individual that is deemed lawful, including but not limited to requesting that the individual attend training, including receive counseling and or coaching and or removal from the assigned duties and responsibilities, including special assignments for the board or committee. 11th, in the event a member violates this code of conduct, the following action steps may be taken. Any violation may be cause for dismissal, educational, and or corrective action. After an initial incident, a meeting may be called with the member and relevant city staff to clarify why the behavior violated the code of conduct and determine appropriate measures as listed above. And further incidents may result in dismissal from serving on that board, commission, or committee, and may be considered in evaluating applications for serving on any city board, commission, or committee in the future. And then finally, as agents of the city of Somerville, members are expected not to discriminate against or harass anyone with regard to race, sex, color, religion, national origin, citizenship status, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, age, disability, military or veteran status, or any other protected status or classification under federal, state, or local law. Thank you all for bearing through me as I read through these. As I mentioned, failure to abide with this code of conduct can be the grounds for termination from the board. At this point, I have received signed code of conduct documents from all 6 SRA board members, so thank you all for sending those in. The expectation will also be that when new SRA members join, who are appointed by the mayor, this will be part of their onboarding process. Now, in addition to these individual documents that I've received from SRA members, the mayor's office also would like each board, commission, and committee, including the SRA, to vote in a meeting to adopt the code, which is what we're here to do today. This is because, as mentioned, the code only applies to mayoral appointees, and not every board, commission, or committee is made up of only mayoral appointees, so this helps the city to adopt the code uniformly. Before I ask a member to move to vote to adopt the code, do we have any questions about this? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions.
All right, Ben, are we ready to move forward on an approval of the code of conduct? We are. Okay, is there a motion to approve the code of conduct as described by Ben Demers?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Alana Bonnie makes a motion to approve. Is there a second? Patrick McCormick seconds with a roll call vote. Alana Bonnie,
Yes.
Ben Ewan Campen is not with us. William Gage,
Yes.
Patrick McCormick,
Yes,
Christine Stone,
Yes,
and myself, Phil Ercolini, have voted to approve the code of conduct as described in the agenda. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the next item on the agenda actually is the 2022 annual report review. And we're gonna table that at this time. There are some corrections and some additions that Ben would like to make to the report, and so it will be available for the October meeting if the members have no issues with that. Okay, thank you. Thanks on that. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is any items not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Okay, seeing none. Our next item is the next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. And the next item on the agenda is I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Is there a motion? Bill Gage makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Alana Bonnie seconds. So let's do a roll call vote. Alana Bonnie,
Yes.
Ben Ewan Campen has left the meeting. William Gage,
Yes.
Patrick McCormick,
yes.
Christine Stone,
yes.
and myself, Phil Ercolini, have voted to adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
well, stay healthy, and we'll see you in October.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.